illustrious guest. It's Sean Yseult. How are you today, Sean?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing, Jay?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. I know you're calling all the way from New Orleans. How do you like the Big Easy?
We just I don't want to say celebrated, but we just had our 10-year anniversary of Katrina, and I got to say, this city is back better than ever. It's great here.
I know. I watched all the documentaries and just seeing the city bounce back and seeing what a big part of music was. I saw Harry Connick and a bunch of people talking about how, what a role music always played in New Orleans and what music means to the rebuilding, and the fact that, once the music is back and thriving, the city, the spirit is back.
Definitely. I mean, this town has always drawn all kinds of artists, musicians, writers, visual artists. And everyone's back and thriving, so it's great. we've even we've had California weather for the past 2 weeks too, so that's nice. It's been dry and breezy.
Sure. Well, I know we have the ambassador, Dr. John. He's going to be out here next week, and I was dealing with Trent Reznor. I know he was down there for a while, and it's definitely a magical city. But if we could go back a little bit, we'd love to go back so we can go forward and talk about your upcoming exhibit and everything. But where exactly did you grow up? Were you from New York?
No, I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina,
okay.
and I spent most of my years in high school, from 12 to 18 at the North Carolina School of the Arts, studying ballet and fine arts, and moved up to New York to go to Parsons, actually. But once I got there, that's when I met Rob, and we found other members and started White Zombie. So, kind of the art school thing.
So what came first? Was it the graphics or the music, or it seemed like it was a marriage of all the creative arts there?
Yeah, I've always been kind of making circles in my life. I started off in music when I was 5 years old, playing piano, and that was pretty intensive. I was taking 3 classes a week and, practicing 3 or 4 hours a day. So music was a big part of my life always. And, by the time I got to New York, I was more focused on photography and visual arts. That's, it's at Parsons for those things. But, I was also getting into the whole punk hardcore scene and going to CBGBs, and that's how Rob and I connected. And, going to art school got me back into music, So,
sure. So it was an amazing time. I know the Ramones and the Dead Boys and the Cramps and so many great groups were coming out of CBGBs and infecting the world with their art and their visuals and their incredible style.
Yeah, those were. I mean, the Ramones and the Cramps were huge influences on White Zombie, definitely. And we actually got to tour with both of those bands later, so that was really cool to get to know those guys and become friends.
Yeah, and I know for such a little club, some people are like, what, this little dive, CBGB's had such a spirit for being, Hilly Crystal, giving people a shot. I remember even when he first saw the Ramones, he wasn't even that impressed, but he let them come back, and they found their stride.
Yeah, no, we actually White Zombie's first show was Monday audition night at CBGB's.
Amazing stuff.
We played quite a bit.
Yeah. So those early days of the whole White Zombie thing, it was punk rock. It was the excitement of all the visuals, and of course seeing groups like the Cramps and everything take that kind of monster, horror visual into a very alternative kind of attitude.
Definitely. I mean, I was obsessed with the Cramps, and I actually got to catch them just before they kind of moved out to the West Coast in the early 80s. And then Rob was really obsessed with the Misfits, and, that again, had the whole imagery of, and everything. So it all tied together.
Yeah. It was an amazing time. What are your best memories of the White Zombie days?
Oh, God. That's really hard to say. We were together so long, and
11 glorious years.
Yeah, and some of it, those early days were really rough, but at the same time fun. When you're so young, you don't care if you're sleeping in a van at a truck stop. It's it doesn't sound like fun, but it kind of was at the time.
Wow.
To playing in front of hundreds of thousands of people at festivals in Brazil and Castle Donington in England, like just huge crowds and amazing, great crowds. There's definitely some highlights.
It must have been a little surreal. This little garage band, was playing in front of that kind of crowd. I mean, just like the Ramones, it started in a garage. To think that what you were playing pretty much probably for your own enjoyment. Now all of a sudden connected with millions of people.
Yeah, no, it was a huge change when we went from Caroline Records to Geffen Records. We just got so much more exposure, and we had really we were practicing every day for hours, so it was it wasn't like the same band exactly, because we're really tightening up and made a great record with Andy Wallace, so that helped.
Yeah. Well, definitely
a
part of history, and of course you documented so much of it in your book. I'm in the band. Was that cathartic to try and get all the stories and everything out?
Yeah, it was great. Again, not to bring up Katrina, but my house survived Katrina, but there was a lot of damage everywhere, and I had a lot of roof damage, and up where I had all my White Zombie things stored, there was a huge hole in the roof just like a foot or two away, so all those things almost got destroyed, and that's part of why I started scanning them and just documenting all that stuff. And I was just going to make a little book for myself, and people started seeing what I was doing, and they're like, oh my God, you got to share this with the fans,
Yeah.
So then I ended up getting a book deal, and it went really well. But it's crazy, all those years of White Zombie. Again, I was still had not a great camera with me on the road or anything, but I was still documenting things and taking photos. And
sure.
All these years later, I finally returned to my photography, so it's been great.
Well, I just had the pleasure yesterday spending a couple hours with Stuart Copeland from the police, and the police were amazing that they documented on Super 8 cameras and photos all their early days, and they were such a lean and mean band that almost immediately they started touring, Saudi Arabia and India and all these faraway lands. And of course, when MTV came up, some of those early police videos, like kind of some of the Duran Duran stuff, had that travelogue that kind of took you around the world, and instantly they were a global band. But it's so important, I think, for people to be able to document what they're doing, because you never know, later how that could be used in a documentary or an art book or an exhibition or anything.
Right, exactly. And I was also a fan of a lot of the bands that we toured with, so I'd photograph them on stage, and it's great to have all that stuff. Again, I didn't have the best camera, I just had little Instamatics and things with me on tour.
Sure.
But,
well, we run an event out here called IES, the Indie Entertainment Summit. It's all about the indie spirit of art and music and TV and film and touring and technologies and everything. And this year at our Rock Honors, we inducted on their 40th anniversary the Ramones, along with Motorhead and the Runaways. So
wow,
I mean a lot of
bands.
a lot of great influences. But the Ramones, and we had Richie Ramone, and we put an all-star band together to pay tribute. But I mean, looking back, 40 years, it seems like the Ramones' legacy is bigger now than ever. I mean, you can't go to the Warped Tour without seeing 1,000 Ramones shirts, and their history is ingrained in American culture.
Definitely. And they have such an iconic logo too.
Yeah.
Our friend Arturo Vega did that.
Oh, he was awesome. And how about the Runaways? What can you say as far as being a female musician, being able to see what Joan Jett and Lita Ford and Sheree Curry and everybody did before?
I've always been a huge Joan Jett fan. I got a fake ID in high school, and that was the first show I ever saw was Joan Jett in a little bar in North Carolina on the I Love Rock and Roll tour, and so exciting. And of course, from that I learned about the Runaways and went backwards a little bit. And they're what a great band.
I mean, they fought uphill from day one. I mean, there's so many guys that have that arrogant attitude, like, oh, girls can't do this. This is a macho game, and knowing that the spirit is in all of us, to be able to create and express yourself. What did you have to overcome any of that? Coming up with White Zombie.
Really, I didn't. I kind of I think people thought I was a guy most of the time in the early days.
You hid behind your
I don't know. We all just had long hair and we're so skinny. We look pretty androgynous. I definitely had girls come backstage trying to meet me thinking I was a guy. So I know for a fact. I feel like I kind of snuck by, at least in the metal world, for a few years there.
Yeah, well, you definitely delivered on a bass, and I know you still collaborate. You still playing with Star and Dagger, or what's going on the music side?
Yes, I'm still playing with Star and Dagger. We have a wealth of material to record. We're going to actually get started end of this month. We're just going to demo out some of the things down here in New Orleans, and we've been talking with our friend Chris Goss, who has said he wants to produce us. So hopefully we're going to get out to California.
Wow, that's out in Joshua Tree?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So
all the desert rock out there.
Yeah, or we're going to fly him here to New Orleans and do the record here. We haven't decided. But either way, we're just honored that he's, expressed interest in us. We love him and worship everything he does.
Yeah, well, you seem you had the best of both worlds, with your history in New York and, of course, New Orleans and California. Such rich, artistic, bases for so much over the decades, Do you remember the first time you came out to California and felt the vibe out here in Southern California?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I came out there before White Zombie moved out there. Actually, I came out with our A&R guy, Michael Alago. Mm-hmm. We were visiting Daniel Ray, who had just joined Masters of Reality, speaking of Chris Goss. Mm-hmm. And we came out and crashed at his apartment, and I just was like, man, I got to get the band out here. So I went back to New York and actually convinced everybody to move,
Yeah, there's so much creativity coming out of every rehearsal room and every crack of crevice out here. It's always
great. We were down in the studios out of the corner of Hollywood and Western, and we had to duck a few drive-by shootings. I remember that.
Was it exactly Beverly Hills? I
yeah,
just
a lot
talked to one of the guys from Pretty Boy Floyd, and he had come out from New York, the guitarist, Christy Majors, and he auditioned for those guys at that building, and he looked around, and he said, man, can I live here? And they're like, whatever. He's like, you just dove right in straight from New York.
Oh, yeah, no, a lot of bands lived in their spaces. It was pretty obvious.
Yeah.
We had a little mini fridge and sleeping bag.
Microwave, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
That's amazing stuff. Well, it brings us to your exhibition, and we would love to hear about what you're going to be displaying and, what we can all look forward to there.
Well, thank you. The show's called Retrospective because I've never shown in New York, and I've had 3 solo shows here in New Orleans, and it's going to be a combination of those shows let's see, this spans about the past 4 or 5 years that I've had these 3 shows. And then I have other photos from going back at least 10 years here in New Orleans. When I first came here, I did a lot of photography I had an old Polaroid land camera, and I could still get film for it, so that was important. And I really took some haunting photos of, a friend took me out to, actually some of my friends and I Hate God took me out to the swamplands where there was just some abandoned old graveyards in the middle of the swamps and old shrimp boats that are, just decrepit and falling apart. And anyway, I got a lot of great photos of people and kind of bizarre locations on that camera. So I'm showing some of that work. I'm going all the way back to that. I made, back in mid-2000s, I made some light boxes that I was in a joint show, and I'm bringing some of those. There's a whole show I did called Mississippi Mermaids, where I did these cyanotype toned photos on silver paper of girls inside bottles floating on the ocean. So it's a little dreamlike. All the photography, everything I've shot is always a bit ambiguous as to what era it's from. I've actually heard octogenarian old ladies claim that a photo I took of a friend in a graveyard was actually them when it was actually my friend Katie from Nashville Pussy. So it's funny. I like to kind of confuse people and apparently some of these people get so confused they think the photos are them.
I know. You know, you can go to a lot of places down south, and you can just feel that history of the 50s and the 60s, and you know, it just in a way it seems like time was preserved.
Oh yeah, well here in New Orleans it goes so much further back, even, you know, to the 1700s, and the the show, the main show I'm bringing up is my recent show. It's still on view at Scott Edwards Gallery here in New Orleans, but I'll be taking it down soon to ship up to New York City, and it's called Soirée d'Evolution, and that's tableau vivants and nature morte, so it's still life, and then these large staged tableaus of people in various. It's very posed, but it's telling a story basically of a very debaucherous absinthe party that is a secret society in the 1870s, and it's based on a lot of truth. So it's fictitious, and it's a little tongue in cheek and a little bit on the dark side, as I enjoy. But it's also very lavish and decadent and influenced by Dutch masters. Anyway, they're huge prints. They're 4 feet by 6 feet, these prints, and that I'm just thrilled with it. It's the first time I've done anything like this, and a lot of people think they're paintings, so it's interesting.
And where can people find information on this online for your exhibitions coming up?
Well, I'll have information definitely being posted on. I have a Facebook page, Shawnee Yseult White Zombie, but the gallery is called Sacred Gallery, and they already have it posted and up, and I'll also be posting things on my website. That's just ShawneeYseult.com. Yeah, the opening is November 7th. They have huge, big blowout rock and roll openings at this gallery.
Wow.
Like enormous. Yeah. It's open bar and DJs and everything, and it's a huge place in Soho. So it's November 7th. Come on down. I think it's like 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
Well, we'll be winging our way from L.A. to that. And in closing, Sean, you've seen so much over your years, so much creativity, so much photography and art and music and everything. You know, the businesses are constantly changing, technology changes, but what advice do you have to young creative people as far as really finding their own or developing, maximizing their own unique creativity? What do you tell them these days?
Oh, man. You know, I always say just do your thing, man. You know, just do your thing, because, you know, don't look to others. Just you got to kind of turn inwards and see what's inside of you.
So don't really follow. You know, I mean, maybe you're inspired by others, but really don't be afraid of taking chances and really going out on a limb to really be your own unique.
Don't be afraid to express just whatever, you know. Don't worry about what's going on today or what's the happening thing. You know, it's just, you know, you have to be true to yourself, and you know, everything else will follow.
Well, we really appreciate your time and can't wait to hear more from Star and Dagger, and of course support your big exhibition in New York and everything you're doing down there in New Orleans. Sean, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jay. That was great. Take care. Thanks so much.
And if we could get a quick promo, the show is called INDIEPOWER. It's all about that independent power inside, just like what you do. So let them know who you are from White Zombie and Star and Dagger. And if the music's inside of you, you have indie power. Just in with a tagline, you got indie power, something like that.
Okay, make them up.
You know, if you got creativity inside of you, you got music inside of you, you got indie power, something like that.
Okay. Hey, this is Shawnee Yseult from White Zombie and Star and Dagger. You got creativity inside you, you've got indie power.
Awesome. Do one more.
Okay. Hi, this is Shawnee Yseult from White Zombie and Star and Dagger. You're listening to INDIEPOWER.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sean. We'll definitely get the word out on everything you're doing and stay in touch. And we'd love to invite you one of these years out to IES, the Indie Summit. It'll blow your mind. People come in from all over the globe and across the country for it. And it's a real vibrant, getting together of creative people.
That's awesome.
Love to have you.
Thanks
we'll
so much.
And spotlight Star and Dagger and anything you're doing.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you. We'll be in touch. I'll send you links.
Okay.
Have a great day.
Take care.